Here to you. Good evening. We are here for the final session of our course on the history of anti-Semitism. Yasher koach to all of you who have stuck it out for 13 sessions of reading some of the most vile literature that we have encountered in our lives.
You see Dory's message.
Oh, do I have the big mic on? Yes.
It's
not
sounding
picking up?
quieter than usual.
Really? Okay.
I'm popping my volume up.
Test. Is that any better? Yes.
If it's
Like
okay in
this?
there, then I'll just keep knocking mine out.
Okay. So yeah, we have studied a lot over the course of many centuries, learning about the evolution of anti-Semitic ideas. I've heard more than one of you say that it gets repetitive after a while. Well, yeah, yes, indeed. Sadly, that is the case, and it has been the case for a long time. But my hope is that following tonight's session, and then having completed the course, that you will be able to recognize anti-Semitic tropes and understand where they came from and why they're significant and what they point to going forward in a much more, in a deeper and more nuanced way than perhaps you did before. And I think that that's really important, because there is a lot of this, again, in discourse today. And some of it is unmistakable. Some of it is much more subtle. And if we're not familiar with this history, we may not recognize it. Tonight we are going to do Unit 8, which is American anti-Semitism. So we are going to focus in, I mean, there's more to do than what we're going to do tonight, of course. And I had mentioned at the start of this course that we weren't going to get into specifically, contemporary material, although I have been sharing over the course of the semester, with you podcasts and articles and such that demonstrate what's happening now. There is a little bit of now that I do want to touch on tonight as it relates to what we're going to read. But tonight we're primarily going to be focusing on Henry Ford and Louis Farrakhan. We'll get a little of some earlier American stuff too, but those are our main characters for tonight. And then I want to kind of demonstrate or suggest how these figures relate to the present moment, because I do think that they do. This is part of a tradition of American anti-Semitism, which is not unrelated to European or anti-Semitism, but is of its own kind as well. So we have two presenters tonight, Adam Bender and Leslie Abrams. So Adam, would you like to come up first?
Thank you very much. This article is on anti-Semitism in the United States. The article concerns anti-Semitism in the United States, and Levy notes that the ingredients that produced anti-Semitic movements in Europe have also been present in the United States, where the Jewish minority is urbanized, now largely middle class, and concentrated in the professions, highly visible in the media and entertainment industries, and widely perceived as, quote, different, unquote, and, quote, powerful, unquote. Even though the United States Constitution forbids the application of religious tests for office holding, Individual states can still practice discrimination unhindered. Interestingly, in contrast to Europe, political utilization of anti-Semitic prejudice was not successful as it was in Europe. And no political figure, thank God, has been able to make significant political gain out of anti-Semitism. That should not be mistaken for tolerance. Here in the USA, very influential, powerful, and respected figures, the likes of Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Theodore Roosevelt, A.G. Bell, John D. Rockefeller, Helen Keller, and Andrew Carnegie were known for their anti-Semitic writings and support of eugenic theories involving selective sterilization of less desirable people. Anti-Semitic attacks greatly increased during the Great Depression of the 1930s. Early in World War II, there was a great resistance to entering the war. Hitler's persecution was viewed by American pro-Nazi groups as justified because it had been international Jewry's goal to get the United States involved in the war. This explained the callous disregard in the United States for the destruction of European Jews during World War II. Immigration quotas and fixed percentage for Jewish admission to schools were commonplace. During the Red Scare of the 1950s, Jews were linked to communism. Few realized that Hitler's formation of concentration camps and enslavement was directly derived from America's treatment of Native Americans and African Americans. We Americans tend to minimize the significant underlying anti-Semitic tendencies that easily could, if we're not very vigilant, lead to a similar situation that happened in Germany.
Thank you, Adam. Nicely done. I'll take a copy of it and circulate it. Thank you, Adam. Leslie, you want to come on up? See you and I in action.
Exactly. Jews in the US never needed to be emancipated. They were always legally equal and free. So the US became a haven for persecuted Jews, first for Spanish and Portuguese Jews, later for German Jews in the mid-19th century. The largest immigration was from Russia and Eastern Europe, totaling over 2 million from 1880 to 1915. With an expanding economy, America was truly a golden Medina, a golden land. Anti-Semitism existed, but America's strong tradition of tolerance and pluralism confined anti-Semitism to the social sphere. Each wave of Jews developed distinctive institutions and patterns. German Jews established major national organizations for charity and welfare. East European Jews continued this pattern, but formed a more ethnic community, in contrast with the older, more assimilated Jews. This was acceptable because American pluralism was ethnic, not just religious, and ethnic affections and solidarity did not detract from American patriotism. My second reading was the report from Jewish Telegraphic Agency of a protest by the United Federation of Teachers against an anti-Semitic poem read by a Black leader on WBAI on December 26, 1968. It included the lines, "Hey Jew boy with that yarmulke on your head. Hey Jew boy, I wish you were dead." Briefly, the 1968 dispute between the predominantly Black community of Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and the nearly totally white teaching and administrative staff, including many Jews, exemplified the increase of anti-Semitism in the Black community in the 1960s.
Thank you, Leslie. Very nicely done. Nashakaw, Leslie, and Adam, thank you for your excellent presentations. Okay. So, because America's our context, some of this may be, very close to us in terms of our own experiences. I want to begin tonight by any kind of personal reflections that you have on, on what you read and your own, and how it relates to your own experiences growing up living in America. Adam.
When I was 11 years old, having lived in Great Neck where everybody, all my friends are Jewish, everyone, the Boy Scout troop I belonged to, for some reason, was only Christian. I was the only Jew. And it was the first time I was ever subjected to anti-Semitism because one of them called me a dirty Jew. I was 11 years old. This was like 1952 or something, 1953.
Yeah.
But we think of ourselves as very immune to anti-Semitism in Great Neck and don't see the greater picture. But it actually happened, and I remember it like a knife. It was like extremely upsetting to me.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Michael.
I remember the opposite. I had a Christian friend who was no Boy Scout troop in my neighborhood. And I joined his Boy Scout troop in the Christian Methodist Church. And more than not encountering anti-Semitism, at least obvious anti-Semitism, they used to pray at the end and they whispered in my ear, you don't want to take part, you don't have to take part.
Very nice.
And, so I said, I'll just sit there and not say anything.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Nice. Thank you, Michael. Arlene?
I remember in the late 70s when I first moved to Great Neck, and my brother and my son were, the son was maybe just past bar mitzvah. My brother is 6 years older than him. Both are in kippahs, and they were walking up by the park near Beach Road, and somebody was calling them cops.
Here in Great.
Very great.
Wow. Yeah, Dorothy.
It was 88, son was 10 at the time. Eddie and I had the good fortune to purchase a small cottage on the it was in Southampton Township, but it was on the bay side in the woods, kind of small, adorable little A-frame house, adorable. And we were the only Jews. I didn't go around asking people if they were Jewish, but all of the neighbors clearly were not. And we had wonderful neighbors who were very kind to us. And one day we're walking on the dirt road, and we're walking with one of our neighbors, and someone comes up to us, and the neighbor introduces, oh, this is, Joe, these are the Greenbaums, and he said, oh, the Jew house. And it was shocking. We knew that the area was not a Jewish area once we moved in, but just the way he said it was offensive.
Sure.
And the neighbors were so upset that they made a welcome to the neighborhood party for us. Seriously, everybody except that guy. And a few days, whatever it was, a week later, he walked over and he walked on our land, on our piece of whatever, the acre, whatever. And I said to him, get off my property. And he said, well, I can go anywhere. I said, this is my land. This is my house. You get off my property now. But it was that tension, that awful tension. So it was there. It was under the surface, and then until the Jew moved in.
Yeah.
When the Jews moved in, it's a whole different thing.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, David.
I used to spend my summers with my grandparents in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. It's in the White Mountains on the leeward side of Mount Washington. And after the flu epidemic of 1918, Jews from the north go there for two reasons. One, to get away from the flu epidemics in the city. And secondly, for whatever reason, it's 8 for free because of the winds, I guess. From 1918 until 1948, Jews were not permitted to own property or stay in any of the hotels or boarding houses in town. Up until that time, the Jews wanted to stay overnight, they had to stay in tents, not in permanent facilities.
Wow.
My grandfather was the first Jew to be able to buy property in 1948. And I still remember that, you know, it was like them and us situation in town. I'm told that I was put up for, in the town square, they had a band every Friday night. They had a beautiful baby contest. I was put forward, apparently. I was
Did you win?
6 or 7 months old. And it was down to me and a townie as the final. Well, the population like doubles or triples with out-of-town Jews who had the vote, right? We lost.
Oh.
But I remember, you know, that literally my grandfather would say, you know, I have to vote here in November, because if I don't, my taxes will go up. There was no such thing as a secret ballot or secret tax roll, and it was omnipresent.
Wow. Thank you, David. Marcy, go ahead.
Two points. One is that as you know, I live in Queens in Douglas Manor, which is a separate subdivision on the peninsula right across the little bay from Great Neck. There were restrictive declarations in this neighborhood until the mid-70s that no homes could be sold to Jews or Blacks. And in fact, I knew the first Jewish family who were able to buy a house in like the mid to late 70s. So it was sort of common. One thing I would warn people about, as horrible as that terrible poem is that was included in the readings, the 1968 teachers strike and the Ocean Hill-Brownsville issue was an extremely complicated issue with lots of bad feeling and hatred on both sides. And as someone who was a high school student in one of the specialized high schools in New York City that year, I was a senior, that was my senior year of high school, it was really quite ugly, and there was a lot of racism on both sides, and it's just not quite as simple as like Blacks were anti-Semitic.
Okay, thank you, Marcy. All right, Lori and then Susie.
I want to honor my grandfather and my father with two
What?
things. My grandfather used to always talk, my father's father used to say, whenever I mentioned like an Italian restaurant, he'd say, Italians, they're the most anti-Semitic. Or Greeks are the most, and it became like a joke, every single group, the Irish, they were the most, and I thought that he was a little paranoid, every group, but I think he's rolling over in his grave now. But he wasn't allowed to get into the unions because he was Jewish. Many of the unions were closed to Jews. And then my father was a Harvard graduate, Columbia Law School, and he couldn't get into any of the white shoe firm. Now, granted, he wasn't beaten up, he wasn't killed, but he couldn't get into any of the corporate firms. He would go on interviews, he was handsome, and he went on like 10 interviews, all the top firms in New York City. And finally, the 10th one, a guy pulled him aside and said, you know, Billy, you seem like a nice person, you're wasting your time. Our kind of firms are never gonna hire you. So I just wanted to point out that. But luckily, you know, I didn't have any of those discriminatory practices. I'm grateful.
Thank you, Lori. Susan, go ahead. Susan, and then Jackie and Anita. Go ahead, Susan. Susan, you're muted.
Okay, now you can hear me. I grew up in Philadelphia in the 50s, and every morning we started with a psalm from the New Testament, and then everybody had to stand up and recite the Lord's Prayer. There was school on Rosh Hashanah, and if you didn't go, you were absent. There was school on Yom Kippur. There was never menorahs. There was never anything Jewish. There were Christmas trees, etc. But when I think about it now, no parent ever complained. No parent ever went to the school and said, what about the Jewish children? And there were many, we were half Jewish. And yet every day in Pennsylvania, I could recite the Lord's Prayer now. We did the Psalm, we stood up with the Lord's Prayer. It was wrote, but nothing was done for the Jewish holidays, and no one ever said anything. No parent ever said anything.
Thank you, Susan. Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, when I was 10 years old, I went to private school. I did not go to public school. And when I was 10 years old, I was following two little girls from my class. And one turned to the other and said, Nana, why are you going to public school next year? That's where all the dirty Jews are.
Oh, gosh.
So
Where was that, Jackie? Where was that?
that was at Buckley Country Day School,
In what town?
Roslyn.
In Roslyn. Okay. Wow.
I also went, Buckley and Friends both had quotas as to how many Jews they were allowed to accept. And one of my, actually, my brothers and we had friends in each of our grade. One of the mothers was on the board at Friends. And when my brother was applying there, my mother called and said, can you do anything? Could you help us? And she said, oh, absolutely, because, we have to take a certain amount of Jews, and you're one of us. So I'd rather have someone we know.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, Anita, go ahead, and then we're gonna get into our text. Go ahead, Anita.
Okay, so I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana, and in my grade school, I had one other Jewish girl, actually in my same grade. My sister had nobody Jewish in her grade, and my brother had nobody Jewish in his grade, although there was one boy 1 year younger than him. And then I don't remember about junior high, but by high school, there were 4 of us Jews in high school, and my brother and sister went to a different school, so I'm not quite sure about that. Anyway, by the time high school came, I never heard anything out vocally to me, but I always wondered if sometimes I wasn't being invited to things because I was Jewish. My sister, and I never objected to being growing up Jewish in a town where there were hardly any Jews, or at least Jews that self-identified. Since then, I found that there are plenty more that were there at the time, but weren't self-identifying. My sister had always said she didn't like growing up Jewish. And just recently she said that I'm calling them her so-called friends. We're calling her dirty Jew all the time.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Okay, wow. Well, thank you. Oh, Mickey.
I just
sorry.
have
Yeah,
a comment about something that we read.
sure, go ahead.
Because there's a statement in the American experience, this pro-Zionism, later pro-Israelism, eventually became the factor that bound, some would say defined, most of American Jewry. And I thought to now, post-October 7th,
Yeah,
not so much anymore.
it's true. Yeah, that's true. The American Jewish population is very fractured over Zionism. Okay. Phil, I'm sorry.
Question.
Yes.
What is the Reform position on Zionism today?
Oh, the Reform movement is strongly pro-Zionist. Didn't originate that way in the 19th century, but it is today. Okay, thank you all for sharing your experiences. Each story gives insight into American anti-Semitism. And we're going to start in our handout. At the top, it says Peter Stuyvesant. So we're just going to look at these 2 short texts from America in the 17th century. This is the very beginning of New York. We have a scholar in residence coming to Temple Beth-El the Shabbat of March 13th and 14th, Dr. Gary Zola from the American Jewish Archives in Cincinnati. And one of the sessions that he's going to teach is about the Jews of New Amsterdam. And that Scholar in Residence visit is generously sponsored by David and Susan Weiss Horowitz. It's going to be really wonderful. We'll learn a lot more about this. So we're going to get a taste of it right now. Peter Stuyvesant. Just the note there, the biographical note. In May 1645, Stuyvesant was selected by the Dutch West India Company as Director of New Netherland. He arrived in New Amsterdam on May 11, 1647. A man of autocratic inclinations, he was nonetheless an obedient servant to his employer, the Dutch West India Company, established by the Estates General of the Netherlands as a public company in June 1621. And so they kind of ran the area. And interesting in this time, mercantilism, where the companies were kind of like states that ran these colonies. So anyway, he submits this petition to expel the Jews from New Amsterdam to the board of the Dutch West India Company, and this is what he says. And so we're going to read them, and again, I want you to let's try to notice with the sophistication now that we have developed in our class of what kind of anti-Semitism we're seeing here. The Jews who have arrived would nearly all like to remain here, but learning that they, with their customary usury and deceitful trading with the Christians, were very repugnant to the inferior magistrates, as also to the people having the most affection for you. The deaconry, also fearing that owing to their present indigence, they might become a charge in the coming winter, we have, for the benefit of this weak and newly developing place and the land in general, deemed it useful to require them in a friendly way to depart. Praying also most seriously in this connection for ourselves as also for the general community of your worships, that the deceitful race, such hateful enemies and blasphemers of the name of Christ, be not allowed to further infect and trouble this new colony, to the detraction of your worships and the dissatisfaction of your worship's most affectionate subjects. Now he's speaking about Jews who came to New Amsterdam from Brazil. This is how the first American Jews made their way here, was via Brazil. They had been Portuguese Jews through Brazil, and then came here. So this is what he's talking about. Now, what do you see here? What do you notice here? Lee?
Customary usury,
Yeah,
deceitful trading,
okay.
in fact.
Yeah, yes.
But I also like, as happens current days also. So we're both deceitful in how we're trading, and we're gaining our income by usury.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're worried that that we will, I didn't underline it. Indigent, thank you. But at the same time, we're going to be indigent, and we're going to need the assistance of the community. So we are both money grubbers.
Yeah.
And indigent.
Yeah. Yeah, parasites on the society.
But
yeah. Right, okay, so the paradoxes, I mean, that is a common feature of the anti-Semitic literature that we've seen, is that there's strong, paradoxes of Jews being both at the same time of two conflicting, things. Okay, what else, Michael?
Well, there was religious anti-Semitism where he says blasphemers of Christ.
Yeah.
And then there was racial anti-Semitism because he talked about the characteristics you were just talking about.
Yeah.
As attached to their race.
Right.
So it was a combination of the two.
It is a combination of the two, and we've seen now by this time in the evolution of anti-Semitism, this we've moved beyond strictly a religious anti-Semitism, I think, anywhere at this point. This is all now, there has become, the idea has taken hold that Jews as a race or as a nation or people, whatever, the term that we'll use, Jews possess certain innate qualities that are nefarious, right? So it's gone well beyond strictly erroneous religious belief into an essentialist kind of characterization of Jews as possessing bad qualities, and those qualities specifically associated with money, usury, deceit, parasitic attachments to societies. This has become common at this point. Yeah, Adam.
The interesting thing is that you require them to depart in a friendly way.
Yeah.
This is the.
Self-deport.
Yeah, right. Yeah, self-report. We would be so greatly appreciative if you would
Just go away.
you just self-deport. Okay, all right. So now let's turn to the next page. We're going to look at the response from the Dutch West India Company. Okay. We would have liked to effectuate and fulfill your wishes and request that the new territories should no more be allowed to be infected by people of the Jewish nation. For we foresee therefrom the same difficulties which you fear. But after having further weighed and considered the matter, we observe that this would be somewhat unreasonable and unfair, especially because of the considerable loss sustained by this nation with others in the taking of Brazil, as also because of the large amount of capital which they still have invested in the shares of this company. Therefore, after many deliberations, we have finally decided and resolved to apostille upon a certain petition presented by said Portuguese Jews, that these people may travel and trade to and in New Netherland and live and remain there, provided the poor among them shall not become a burden to the company or to the community, but be supported by their own nation. You will now govern yourself accordingly. Okay, so they come down in favor of Jews, but in a nasty way,
In an anti-Semitic way.
and in a very anti-Semitic way. So what do you notice in here? Jews have money, yeah, insofar as they're shareholders in the company.
Right.
Okay, yeah, they need that, their money, yeah.
Also, the Netherlands was a big trading area for Jews,
Uh-huh,
particularly Amsterdam,
uh-huh,
coffee and other things.
okay,
So it would have destroyed the trade area.
okay, yeah, so the Jews are useful economically and to this enterprise. Lee?
Something I sort of remember from my mom, always saying that wherever the Jews traveled, before they set up a synagogue,
Uh-huh,
they would set up, essentially a cemetery board.
yeah, uh-huh,
And or a communal, I'm thinking of in Albany, that, that you had a burial society before you had a synagogue, because we were already going to make sure that we took care of our own.
yeah, yeah,
And, now whether that was self-imposed to make sure that as Jews, in our Jewish ethics, that we cared about our own community, or that there were any additional outside forces, but you set up a cemetery.
yeah.
Before you
And
set up-
and tend to the welfare of the members of the Jewish community, and surely one factor in that is internal Jewish values and so forth. But here, and I think this is clearly another factor. Notice that this document says that if they become If they're poor, then they can't be a burden to us. They need to be supported by their own nation. So surely those kind of sentiments also fueled Jews creating, their own hospitals and their own welfare societies, because the larger the Gentile population wouldn't necessarily want to support them. Okay, yeah, Phil.
They describe the Jews as a nation.
Yes.
As others, not part of them.
Right, this is very clearly seen as that the Jews constitute a separate nation that's not part of whatever nation we are, okay? And this is an enduring theme, apropos it becomes repetitive after a while. It does, this is an enduring theme, and it's something that is manifesting itself right now in this moment in America, and I think it's very concerning. So we should be paying attention to it. Okay, now let's turn.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Was
Arlene.
the Netherlands at the time a sort of place of religious freedom?
I don't know.
And even the colonies as they developed, some of them were about religious freedoms. It just strikes me as very ironic.
Yeah.
Religious freedom, but for which religion?
Yeah, well, America, is founded on the principle of religious freedom, for sure. Look at the note here under the Dutch West India Company text. It says, 3 overriding factors seem to induce the Amsterdam Chamber to reject Stuyvesant's petition to bar Jews from settling in New Amsterdam. The vigorous intercession on the part of Amsterdam Jewry, some of whom had substantial investments in the Dutch West India Company, an appreciation of the loyalty of the Jews in Brazil. So there was some, I think in the previous note it describes what happened in Brazil.
It says they were loyal rather than.
Yeah, in the note on the Peter Stuyvesant text.
The Portuguese took over the Netherlands trading posts in Brazil.
Okay.
As part of a war.
Okay.
In the 17th century.
Yeah, so that there's this note is saying that the Jews were loyal to the Netherlands and they valued that. Okay, yeah, so this note over here under Stuyvesant, in September 1654, some 23 Jewish refugees are said to have arrived in New Amsterdam after fleeing from Recife, Brazil, where the Portuguese had recaptured several colonies from the Netherlands. There's some question as to the exact number. Although Dutch subjects, these Jewish refugees met with unexpected hostility from Stuyvesant, the governor of New Netherlands. Stuyvesant immediately wrote the letter presented here. Okay, yeah, requesting the permission to bar them. Okay, but so this note under the second text says that their loyalty to the Netherlands in this battle with Brazil, or that battle with the Portuguese, counted in their favor. And then the imperatives of mercantilism, so the economic
I would have put that first.
consideration. What's that?
I would have thought that would be the first point in.
The first
why we're
point.
gonna keep the Jews.
Well, they wanted to be nice and say they're loyal citizens.
Right.
Yeah, but this company, the Dutch West India Company, doesn't seem to have a lot of love for Jews in the way they speak about them. Okay, so now we're gonna fast forward and to the next page, we're gonna look at Henry Ford.
We have to.
Yeah.
Prince among men.
Yes, okay. So Henry Ford, we know who he is. He ran a newspaper called the Dearborn Independent. And he wrote a series of many articles about Jews, which then he collected into a book at the time called The International Jew, The World's Problem. Okay, so let's see what he says. The Jew is again being singled out for critical attention throughout the world. His emergence in the financial, political, and social spheres has been so complete and spectacular since the war that his place, power, are we okay, Dory? Okay. That his place, power, and purpose in the world are being given a new scrutiny, much of it unfriendly. Persecution is not a new experience to the Jew, but intensive scrutiny of his nature and supernationality is. Okay, that last phrase is really important. His nature and his supernationality. Let's talk about the two. What does he mean by his nature? Dorothy?
Those inborn qualities that he has of greed and separatism and superiority and being chosen, all of that is part of his nature.
Part of it, and when he said the Jew, and I mean this is all Jews.
Yes.
The idea that all Jews have these qualities. Okay. And then supernationality.
They don't have any loyalty to any one nation. They
Yeah.
have a nationality above all the others.
They transcend. Yeah, exactly. Now think of have you ever seen anti-Semitic cartoons that depict like a Jew with his like hands around the globe? Okay. Oh yeah. So this derives from the protocols of the elders of Zion. And this idea that Jews are supranational, not of any particular national community, but that they're bigger than nation. Not just dispersed among nations, but actually bigger than nation, and that's how they, Jews dominate the world, which is their kind of innate mission, I think. The idea here. He has suffered for more than 2,000 years from what may be called the instinctive anti-Semitism of the other races. But this antagonism has never been intelligent, nor has it been able to make itself intelligible. I noticed this idea of instinctive anti-Semitism. What does that make you think of? What does it mean to you?
Inborn.
The anti-Semitism is inborn?
Yes, that's the Sartre, the Sartre thing.
Oh, Sartre, yeah.
I knew a German woman
Yeah.
who got out of just one of the last boats out of Europe. And she would say to me that Germans drink anti-Semitism from their mother's milk.
Huh.
Was her, it was
Just in them.
innate in
Yeah.
their nature.
Wow. And when I read that, I think, it's colored by what we learned from about Nazism, the sense that like there's an instinctive, biological reaction to Jews. People might not know why they have that, like Dorothy points and connects with Sartre. It's not even rational. Why do they have it? They don't know, but it's instinctual in people because there's something innately toxic.
I think that's what she was getting at.
Yeah, about Jews, so that people are instinctively repelled by it. Arlene?
I think there is a new theory of sort of genetics that these kinds of hates and whatever become part of your genome.
Huh.
And that, you're sort of born to hate or to, not just hatred, but all kinds of other, like that we as Jews, what's been passed down is that for people of the book, that's become inherent in our cultures. and that it's something almost semi-genetic. And I think that anti-Semitism, it just got passed down so that it became like a genetic thing that gets just passed. One generation, one society, one down and down and down.
Inherent culture.
You know.
Right, but I mean, in the not, you know, in the Nazi kind of worldview, remember, which characterizes all of these races as like, you know, animal species or whatnot. And this idea of instinctive anti-Semitism suggests to me almost like evolutionary biology, like you learn to be in, you know, you have a gag reflex against certain things that are bad for you. Is what I hear in, you know, in this. Evan.
Yes, we've gone to a new area of anti-Semitism. All these others that we've studied have all this logic that was developed to justify the anti-Semitism. And you know, and the lies and you know, the logic in Mein Kampf where he said, well, first I was okay with everyone, but
Yeah.
and they go through, well, here it's simple, it's instantaneous, you're anti-Semitic. You have to go through all this stuff.
Right, very simple. Yeah, interestingly though, pay attention to the tone of this Ford essay as compared to some of the Germans, you know, that we read, and see if you notice any kind of difference in tone. Yeah, Dorothy.
Did you ever read Fish Don't Exist, that book?
No.
Okay, Fish Don't Exist. Fish do not exist. And it was written by a man who was about a man who was that his statue was in Stanford University. He was a brilliant scientist. He was able to, you know, do taxidermy or whatever of all these species, and then there was a fire and he lost everything and he started from scratch and he brought it all back, and everybody admired his tenacity and his brilliance. And somehow or other along the way he became into eugenics and anti-Semitism, and he was part of this whole group of people. In any case, following his mindset, it was terrifying, and it's based on a true story. His statue, until the book was written, I don't know if it's still there, was on the grounds honoring him at Stanford University. Fish don't exist. If you have a chance, pick it up.
Thank you.
I don't.
All right, I'm sorry.
I don't know if you realize it, but every, I think Ford wrote a weekly or regular diatribe about the anti-Semitism, and he put it in every car he sold.
Oh, interesting.
What?
I did it.
When he sold the car, he put his,
Oh my God.
letter in every car.
Wow. Mm.
That's crazy.
Okay, so let's keep going. So he says it's never been intelligible, it's just almost like instinctual. Nowadays, however, the Jew is being placed, as it were, under the microscope of economic observation, that the reasons for his power, the reasons for his separateness, the reasons for his suffering may be defined and understood. In Russia, he is charged with being the source of Bolshevism, an accusation which is serious or not, according to the circle in which it is made. We in America, hearing the fervid eloquence and perceiving the prophetic ardor of young Jewish apostles of social and industrial reform, can calmly estimate how it may be. In Germany, he is charged with being the cause of the empire's collapse, and a very considerable literature has sprung up, bearing with it a mass of circumstantial evidence that gives the thinker pause. In England, he is charged with being the real world ruler, who rules as a super nation over the nations, rules by the power of gold, and who plays nation against nation for his own purposes, remaining himself discreetly in the background, like a puppet master. In America, it is pointed out to what extent the elder Jews of wealth and the younger Jews of ambition swarmed through the war organizations, principally those departments which dealt with the commercial and industrial business of war, and also the extent to which they have clung to the advantage which their experience as agents of the government gave them. In simple words, the question of the Jews has come to the fore, but like other questions which lend themselves to prejudice, efforts will be made to hush it up as impolitic for open discussion. If, however, experience has taught us anything, it is that questions thus suppressed will sooner or later break out in undesirable and unprofitable forms. The Jew is the world's enigma. Poor in his masses, he yet controls the world's finances. Scattered abroad without country or government, he yet presents a unity of race continuity which no other people has achieved. Living under legal disabilities in almost every land, he has become the power behind many a throne. There is the paradox. He's affirming the paradox here and saying the Jews are an enigma. There are ancient prophecies to the effect that the Jew will return to his own land and from that center rule the world, though not until he has undergone an assault by the United Nations of mankind. The single description, which will include a larger percentage of Jews than members of any other race, is this: he is in business. It may be only gathering rags and selling them, but he is in business. From the sale of old clothes to the control of international trade and finance, the Jew is supremely gifted for business. More than any other race, he exhibits a decided aversion to industrial employment, which he balances by an equally decided adaptability to trade. The Gentile boy works his way up, taking employment in the productive or technical departments. But the Jewish boy prefers to begin as messenger, salesman, or clerk, anything so long as it is connected with the commercial side of the business. Where have we seen this? Where?
About money lenders.
Okay, so it starts with money lenders, with the money lending. The Jew, that Jews are not engaged in any kind of productive activity for society, just trading, giving, money, profit. Shylock, yeah. Yeah, Pat.
It had been pointed out that the Jews had to start their own law firms because they weren't accepted to others,
Yeah,
but they weren't able to own farmland, they weren't able to do a lot of things. So the one thing they could control was owning their own businesses.
yeah, of course. So I mean, that's the story from the, antiquity or the Middle Ages, when Jews are forced into lending money because they weren't allowed to do anything else. And the kings of, Christian kings forced them to do it because their economies needed money lending, and Christians weren't allowed to lend at interest to each other, right? So Jews are forced into that, but then as a result, they take on this image of Jews are not industrious, they're not productive, they just buy and sell, or they trade or whatever. And as a result, they're just parasites on, what other people create. I mean, it's back to that I quoted from Wall Street, the movie, a Gordon Gekko figure. I don't know if he's meant to be Jewish, but Gordon Gekko, says, well, he says greed is good, but there's a scene where he says, I make nothing, I own. And that's this criticism of Jews. They make nothing, they contribute nothing, they just own. Yeah, Adam.
The whole system of capitalism depends upon having a lender of money.
Yeah.
And the Jews are the center of that, and capitalism is just getting started around.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so opposition to capitalism gives expression through opposition to Jews. Yeah, Lori.
I noticed that he used the word swarm. We usually think about insects or creepy things and swarm.
For sure. All right, on the next column. The question is, if the Jew is in control, how did it happen? This is a free country. The Jew comprises only about 3% of the population. To every Jew, there are 97 Gentiles. To the 3 million Jews in the United States, there are 97 million Gentiles. If the Jew is in control, is it because of his superior ability, or is it because of the inferiority and don't care attitude of the Gentiles? It would be very simple to answer that the Jews came to America, took their chances like other people, and proved more successful in the competitive struggle. But that would not include all the facts. And before a more adequate answer can be given, 2 points should be made clear. The first is this: all Jews are not rich controllers of wealth. There are poor Jews aplenty, though most of them, even in their poverty, are their own masters. While it may be true that the chief financial controllers of the country are Jews, it is not true that every Jew is one of the financial controllers of the country. The classes must be kept distinct for a reason which will appear when the methods of the rich Jews and the methods of the poor Jews to gain power are differentiated. Secondly, the fact of Jewish solidarity renders it difficult to measure Gentile and Jewish achievements by the same standard. When a great block of wealth in America was made possible by the lavish use of another block of wealth from across the seas, that is to say, when certain Jewish immigrants came to the United States with the financial backing of European Jewry behind them, it would be unfair to explain the rise of that class of immigration by the same rules which account for the rise of, say, the Germans or the Poles, who came here with no resource but their ambition and strength. To be sure, many individual Jews come in that way too, with no dependents but themselves, but it would not be true to say that that massive control of affairs which is exercised by Jewish wealth was won by individual initiative. Okay, so, all right, so it seems the criticism he's making is that Jews have unfair advantages because since they're not rooted in any particular nation, they're everywhere. They're like their own thing, and they all help each other, and they all give each other money, and gives them an unfair advantage when they come to the United States. You know, I mean, in historically speaking, it is true.
It's something to be proud of.
It's maybe something to be proud of, right? Yeah, positive. You know, that Jews in Europe, Jews established, you know, Jews were engaged in kind of transnational trade because they built networks of other Jews in other countries, and, you know, they did do that. You know, Jews did do that and do that. I mean, he sees that he's characterizing this as nefarious. Yeah, Frank.
It's also a vast exaggeration.
Sure.
I mean, if you're talking about the Eastern European immigration of the late 19th century, the vast bulk of them had nothing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
couldn't get much from their friends either.
Yeah.
Even from their Landschaft, because it didn't have any money.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay, now he goes on, we'll just finish him up. To the victor belongs the spoils is an old saying. And in a sense, it is true that if all this power of control has been gained and held by a few men of a long despised race, then either they are supermen whom it is powerless to resist, or they are ordinary men whom the rest of the world has permitted to obtain an undue and unsafe degree of power. Unless the Jews are supermen, the Gentiles will have themselves to blame for what has transpired, and they can look for rectification in a new scrutiny of the situation and a candid examination of the experiences of other countries.
It's
Okay.
a candid evaluation of the experiences in other countries. That was the core of Zionism in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Herzls, and wherever Jews go, anti-Semitism will follow them, and so we need our own state.
Note one, the note that everybody read is, someone mentioned how this pamphlet was in every car he sold. And then it was for many years until he apologized, and just 27, there was a lawsuit. And by that time, the feelings about Jews in every Ford buyer, it percolates.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
even if he won the lawsuit, and even though Ford said, oops,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, doesn't matter,
yeah.
doesn't matter.
And here in this last part, either they're supermen or they're ordinary people. And the rest of the world has allowed them to gain undue influence. I mean, this is again, like the paradox, which he is affirming and represents kind of, poles in anti-Semitism, or the paradox of anti-Semitism. Okay, so either a Jew as Superman is like that, this, mystical kind of figure that, can't be defeated. And we saw that in German, anti-Semitism, the, one of the authors, Mar maybe, or Stecker or something, was saying that the Jews have already won. Okay, they've already dominated us. We're ruined, because of them. On the other hand, and this is, I think, particularly dangerous, the second one, particularly dangerous in modern America. This idea that the Jews have undue influence. They're just a little tiny percentage of the population, yet somehow we have allowed them to gain more influence than they're entitled to. Right? This is a big problem, especially in the equity conversation. Right? Because the idea of equity is that there should be, equitable division of resources based on how much you are. Well, Ford has already told him there's only 3 Jews for every 97 Gentiles. Why do the Jews have so much power? Okay, I think this is a live one right here. Pat.
Yet, since the Middle Ages, the Jews have been the doctors that all the Gentiles went to.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Dorothy, and
I
then
also think
Phil.
that the come away statement from this is, and long may it live. And long may it live, that we have more power than
Oh,
we should per capita.
yeah,
Many people have more money than we should per capita. We do take care of our own, that we do also give tzedakah and take care of, build hospitals and give charity.
Yeah.
That we are dispersed around the world, even though we have a strong affinity for Israel. Yes, 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 and more yes.
yeah. We just want to avoid, I think, the idea we have more than we should. Because
yes.
should suggests that we have influence or resources or that's not rightfully ours.
No, it's right.
Right, and that's a problem.
But it
For that idea to take root. Yeah, Phil, your hand is up, and then
I
Ivan.
basically agree with you. This is a very dangerous article
Yeah,
because it takes some truth
yeah,
and turns it into anti-Semitism.
yeah,
And like I wonder, we look at Congress, how many Jews are in Congress? A lot more Jews in both the Senate and in the House than is our population. And I think to the non-Jew, they say, why is that?
Right.
And so I agree with you. I find it very, it's dangerous. I mean, I'm glad that the Jews are in positions of power, but it feeds on anti-Semitism.
feeds on a big time. I mean, this is where you get the thing of like, the Jewish lobby like controls the government, Israel, like what's that, AIPAC control, anytime we see the sense of like the Jews are kind of controlling things that they're not entitled to control. That like it's this small little country or this small little group of people, and somehow they get like the most mighty to bow down to them and do their will. This all fits within this bucket, of disproportionate influence. Now, now it's true. I mean that if you you look at the United States Congress, Jews are overrepresented relative to our percentage of the population. And we might look at that and say like, hey, that's pretty cool, you know, like, look, the Jews have, you know, Jews generally like make it good in America, but there's a lot of people that see that as a really bad thing that requires a correction. And to the extent that that idea gains, you know, traction in our country, it's bad for us, very bad. Okay, David.
His tone here is very different than the Nazi tone.
Yes, for
Right?
sure.
His tone here is, hey, look what's going on. You know, and he has 300,000 subscribers
Uh-huh.
to this newspaper. It's gonna be omnipresent in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Or wherever boards are being sold.
Yeah.
And so it's not a haranguing, yelling at you.
Right.
Methodology, it's a whispering campaign.
Yeah.
That is very subtle and very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
What I find really interesting with all of these writers is that they never come to the conclusion that maybe we should emulate the Jews.
Right. Yeah.
They're evil and we have to get rid of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's interesting that way. All right, I want to turn to the next text. We're going to look at this poem from December 1968. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I want to get to Farrakhan and then a last thing. But it's important, I think, and this conversation about disproportionate influence and, you know, how Jews fare in American society compared to others is a good segue into this poem and then into Farrakhan. Okay, so let's pay attention to that thread. Okay, so here's the poem. Hey, Jew boy with that yarmulke on your head, you pale-faced Jew boy, I wish you were dead. I can see you, Jew boy, no, you can't hide. I got a scoop on you, yeah, you gonna die. I'm sick of your stuff. Every time I turn around, you're pushing my head deeper into the ground. I'm sick of hearing about your suffering in Germany. I'm sick about your escape from tyranny. I'm sick of seeing in everything I do about the murder of 6 million Jews. Hitler's reign lasted for only 15 years. For that period of time, you shed crocodile tears. My suffering lasted for over 400 years, Jew boy, and the white man only let me play with his toys. Jew boy, you took my religion and adopted it for you. But you know that black people were the original Hebrews. When the UN made Israel a free, independent state, little 4- and 5-year-old boys threw hand grenades. They hated the black Arabs with all their might. And you, Jew boy, said it was all right. Then you came to America, land of the free, and took over the school system to perpetrate white supremacy. Guess you know, Jew boy, there's only one reason you made it. You had a clean white face, colorless and faded. I hated you, Jew boy, because your hang-up was the Torah, and my only hang-up was my color. All right, so what do you see in this? Talk about the dynamics, the dynamic that the author is painting. Yeah, Frank.
Well, Jews have no right to complain. We're white.
Mm-hmm.
And we, like all the whites, are oppressing the blacks.
Okay, yes. Yeah, the categorization of Jews as white. Okay, and this is something too that's been part of the political and cultural conversation for over the last, 7-8 years. Maybe less, maybe a little less. NPR did in 2020 during the George Floyd kind of, the height of it. NPR did this piece about how Jews became white people. Okay, and the categorization of Jews as white people, what are the implications of that?
Easier
Okay, so Jews have it easier, okay, what else?
And we can't claim to be oppressed.
Can't claim to be oppressed. Can't claim to be oppressed, and even more than that, are oppressors. Yeah, because in this kind of frame, the white person is the oppressor of the black people or the people of color, right? And we Jews, of course, we know, have a history of discrimination against us in the United States with quotas and social exclusion, all kinds of things. But once you take Jews and recategorize us as white, it's, pun intended, it whitewashes it. It whitewashes the history of discrimination against Jews in America by making us white. And this has very strong cultural resonance right now. Okay, and you see it here. So the dynamic now is that I think that the author is so angry at Jews because Jews present themselves as oppressed people and are always talking about the Holocaust and all this stuff. And that's like appropriating black suffering and applying it to themselves, but it's like crocodile tears because they're doing fine. And it's the black people who are suffering, right? So there's this hatred of, okay. And we're gonna see it in Farrakhan. So let's turn. Let's turn to the Farrakhan text, and there's a lot of it here, so we're not going to read all of it. I just highlighted some that I want to draw your attention to, and then we're going to move on to something else before we end. Okay, so he's got a treasure trove. So Louis Farrakhan is the leader of the Nation of Islam, of course, and so what do we know about the Nation of Islam? What is the Nation of Islam?
Primarily black Muslims.
Okay, black Muslims, and its ideology is black nationalist. Black nationalist ideology. What's that?
Anti-white, basically.
Okay, so there is anti-white, yeah, for sure, and also anti-Jewish. Black nationalism, and there's a thread that I want to bring through all of these. Ford, Farrakhan, and then the contemporary phenomenon of Christian nationalism. Okay, and I made a chart, or better said, I asked ChatGPT to make us a chart, which is very helpful, comparing the three ideologies side by side, and you'll see that structurally there are many similarities. Although they have, content-wise, they're coming from kind of different places. But there are many similarities. Adam.
Also, the concept that Islam is the original black religion.
Okay.
Not Christianity.
Yes, and the black people as the true Hebrews, the true Israelites, and we saw that in the poem. Okay, I think that the poem said, but you know that black people were the original Hebrews. Okay, and which suggests that the Jews are falsely presenting themselves as the Israelites of the Torah. That motif we saw in Muslim anti-Semitism, the Muslim anti-Semitism which accuses Jews of falsifying the Torah, the prophecies of Moses. And that the Torah we have is actually fake. Okay, so here's Farrakhan. Let's look at the second paragraph there. From Savior's Day speech, and this is only 2022. The enemies of Jesus were Jews. They turned away from God and used the skill and wisdom that God gave them to trick people into sin. Now Satan has to be exposed. The liar has to be exposed. All right, the next paragraph. Did you know that pedophilia, homosexuality, sex trafficking is the work of Talmudists? Referring to several Jews accused or convicted of crimes, he added no one was talking about them, quote, because Talmudic satanic Jews are the ones that feel nobody has a right to punish them for what the Talmud has made lawful to them. Okay, and in the, in the moment of Jeffrey Epstein,
Yes, not good.
yuck, right? Okay, but this accusation, what does this accusation suggest? What's the thrust behind it?
We're demons.
Okay, demons, yeah.
Satanic.
Okay, yeah, satanic, which originates with the Gospel of John. And corrupters of children, and corrupters of morality, right? Corrupters of, and that our law permits that to us. All right, turn to the next page. The third paragraph there, it says sermon. Satanic Jews have infected the whole world with poison and deceit. The Jews have control over those agencies of government. When you want something in this world, the Jew holds the door. Skipping down, Jews were responsible for all of this filth and degenerate behavior that Hollywood is putting out, turning men into women and women into men. White folks are going down, and Satan is going down, and Farrakhan, by God's grace, has pulled a cover off of that satanic Jew. And I'm here to say your time is up. Your world is through. You good Jews better separate, because the satanic ones will take you to hell with them, because that's where they are headed. It is now becoming apparent that there were many Israelis and Zionist Jews in key roles in the 9/11 attacks. Israelis had foreknowledge of the attacks. We know that many Jews received a text message not to come to work on September 11th. Okay, but the one above it about the filth and degenerate behavior, this is, Jews as corrupters of culture, of course, has a long history too, back into the German Romanticism. So Jews have no real culture because they're not part of any real nation or place, rooted nowhere. They come in and just corrupt. Okay, turn to the next page. Second paragraph. Of course, the Jews, have a very small number of people, but they are the most powerful in the world. They have the power to do good and they have the power to do evil. Now, what do the Jews do best? Well, they have been the best in finance that the world has ever known. Okay, it's just like Henry Ford, down at the bottom of that page. And you do with me as is written, but remember that I have warned you that Allah will punish you. You are wicked deceivers of the American people. You have sucked their blood. You are not real Jews, those of you that are not real Jews. You are the synagogue of Satan, and you have wrapped your tentacles around the US government, and you are deceiving and sending this nation to hell. But I warn you in the name of Allah, you would be wise to leave me alone. But if you choose to crucify me, know that Allah will crucify you. Okay, turn to the next page. On Jewish conspiracies. The first one, the false Jew will lead you to filth and indecency. That's who runs show business. That's who runs the record industry. That's who runs television. Couple of paragraphs down. They, Israel and Jews, have been working for years to control your representatives in Congress, in the Senate, and the House of Representatives. They don't fear America because they control it from within. And then the last paragraph there mentioning these different Jewish government officials, Farrakhan said, every Jewish person that is around the president is a dual citizen of Israel and the United States of America. And sometimes we have to raise the question, are you more loyal to the state of Israel than you are to the best interests of the United States? Okay, look at the top of the next page. I look at Lucy Ann Goldberg, Linda Tripp, Monica Lewinsky, and I ask myself, why was this introduced at this time when Netanyahu was being pressured by the president to give up more land on the West Bank? I think we need to look deeper into this than just what appears on the surface. Now, this is the stuff that like Tucker Carlson and, these other freaks are saying right now about Israel. We need to look into this. What's Israel doing? And, they're responsible for this and they're responsible for that. So, I mean, this is just all over the place. You can read the rest of Farrakhan on your own. But now what I want to do I want to show you a video that was just posted today on Facebook. Hold on a second, let me find it. So this is let's see here. Yeah, it's a video, but here he is. No, not that. Okay, I'm gonna share. Shared sound. Okay, so this is, let's see how it plays. Hopefully it gets big. This is Candace Owens. I don't know if you've heard of her. Okay, so if you've seen over the weekend, there was this conference of the Turning Point USA.
Yeah.
And there was some controversy, infighting over kind of anti-Semitism. You've probably been seeing this story with Ben Shapiro, who is a right-wing Jewish pundit, gave a speech where he castigated anti-Semites in this in the Turning Point movement and the MAGA movement. And this video is Candace Owens responding to Ben Shapiro.
He did more than that.
Okay, yeah, so he
Criticized them
for platforming, yeah.
This was also part of an article.
Yeah. So this is Candace Owens responding to Ben Shapiro. Let's see if this will work. Oh. Okay, to quote, yeah. Hold on, let's see. Why isn't it now working?
Applauded by constant.
We're gonna start over again.
Is she Muslim now? No, she's not Muslim, is she?
I don't know, I don't know. Okay.
Kissen and Andrew Christ is King Clavin and all of the people, the men who have to keep applauding what you do like you're a 4-year-old to make you feel good. But the rest of the world can't stand you. You're obnoxious. You have absolutely no values that exist outside of the Talmud. You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew, and I've learned what's in that Talmud and people at home to learn what is in that Talmud so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too, white men. He hates all black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals, that they have a right to own us, that they have a right to make us worship them, that they have a right to lie to us, that they have a right to sue us and take everything that we have, that they have a right to deceive us, that they have a right to treat Charlie the way that he treated Charlie while he was alive, only to then try to defraud the population into thinking that he is somehow a part of his legacy, that he somehow cared about Charlie Kirk and cares to protect the people that are working at Turning Point USA. Goodbye, Ben. Goodbye. The question is, how much more money is Ben Shapiro going to spend to make people think that he's popular? How many more articles is his father going to write under a pen name, Hank Berrien of the Daily Wire, under the pen name Hank Berrien, as he wrote while Ben was at Breitbart, before he turned his back and betrayed them too, because that is his nature. He's one of these belly creatures, sliver on. The question is, how many more weeks and years do we have to keep pretending like Ben Shapiro is relevant? It's an open-ended question. Of course, what followed Ben Shapiro on stage is somebody who Charlie Kirk loved very much and who he fought for to the very end against the Jewish donors who were pressuring him, some of them because Ben Shapiro insisted that they do. That is Charlie Kirk's true legacy, and that is Charlie Kirk's true friend, just as I was and am and will continue to fight and ask questions about who killed Charlie Kirk. And to people that are at home, I implore you to wake up to these people who believe that they are contract lords. I challenge Black Americans to wake up to your true history, because your quarrel is not with white men. Okay? Wake up to who publishes these books and keeps us warring with one another. Christians versus Christians, right? Christians versus Muslims. Wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport. Okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there and you can find it. I think all of us need to wake up to this, because it's making me absolutely sick that he is so bold that he dare sit near Charlie Kirk's station. I am done with it. This one is so fully off of the mother effing plantation. Truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. And I say that on behalf of the world. I know you're going to get applauded by Konstantin Kisin and Andrew Christ is King Clavin.
Okay,
Wow.
so, what's that? Oh, okay. Well, so her language about Jews there, I mean, it brings together all of these ideas, and this is, this is just right now. In the United States, and if people surely thought about this stuff before, but they did not say it publicly. But now this is right out here, and I mean, she's recognized as a nutty, but she's saying these. I mean, have you ever heard anything like somebody say this? Yeah, Ed.
If you're having people at the highest levels of government.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance, sidestepping the issue and.
Yeah.
Not taking a position.
Exactly. Here, I want to pass this out on this chart that I made for you. And Dory, it's in the drive. If you want to put it on the screen, it says American chart. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this chart, again, thanks to Chat GPT, made it instantly. But I asked it questions to compare Henry Ford, Nation of Islam, Black nationalism, and modern Christian nationalism by key themes. And it gave me this chart, which I think is very helpful. And you can see, I think, the structural commonalities, even though the content is different. But here, what you have in nationalist ideologies, which all of these are in one way or another, is a kind of a common structure of it used to be great, it got all screwed up, and it's going to be restored to greatness. That's like the nationalist arc, and we saw it in German nationalism, as well. And I want to just go through this and see how it plays out in these ideologies. So the core anxiety for Ford: fear of modernity, finance capitalism, labor unrest, and cosmopolitan culture. In Nation of Islam, the core anxiety is racial oppression, economic marginalization, loss of Black autonomy. And in Christian nationalism, the core anxiety is secularization, cultural pluralism, and loss of Christian dominance. Okay. So you see the sense that there was a way that it was originally, how it's supposed to be, and it was corrupted. The Jew is, in all of these, is the corrupting force, or the agent of the corrupting force. View of history: Ford, idealized pre-modern small producer America corrupted by elites.
Henry Ford's one of those elites.
Yeah. Nation of Islam, original Black greatness went to enslavement and degradation toward promised restoration. And modern Christian nationalism, Christian founding to moral decline to national restoration. Sacred identity. Forward, real Americans rooted in Protestant moral order. Nation of Islam, Black people as divinely chosen and original people. And then Christian nationalism, Christians as the nation's rightful moral owners. Role of religion. Forward, cultural Protestantism, sacralizing the social order. Nation of Islam, fully theological racial narrative. And Christian nationalism, explicit fusion of Christianity and state power. Understanding of power. Forward, hidden elites manipulate finance, media, and labor. Nation of Islam, conspiratorial forces obstruct Black liberation. Christian nationalism, secular elites undermine God's nation. Role of Jews. Forward, symbol of corrupt modernity and financial control. Nation of Islam, cast as exploitative middlemen and rival power. And Christian to blacks, like in the poem. Christian nationalism, often implicit or coded, sometimes explicit conspiracies, like Candace Owens.
Yeah.
Function of anti-Semitism. Forward, explains disruptive modern change. Nation of Islam, explains historical trauma and inequality. Christian nationalism, sometimes explains cultural and moral decline. Political goal. Forward, moral and economic restoration of, quote, authentic America. Nation of Islam, Black self-determination and separation. Christian nationalism, reassert Christian authority in law and culture. View of pluralism, and I highlighted this one because pluralism, what is the meaning of pluralism?
The tolerance of different opinions and different ways of doing things.
Okay, yeah, a pluralistic society makes room for different ways, you know, of being.
Not just
Pluralism,
tolerate, but delight in it.
delight in it, embrace it, make room for it. Okay, pluralism is central to kind of the American idea, but all of these ideologies are anti-pluralist, and it's important to know that. I think the well-being of Jews in our country depends on preserving America as a pluralistic society. But here, forward, pluralism seen as destabilizing and inauthentic, because if you have lots of different ways of doing the culture gets corrupted. Nation of Islam, pluralism is rejected as diluting Black power. And in Christian nationalism, pluralism is rejected as moral relativism. In other words, in a society that's ordered on any of these viewpoints, what room is there for the non kind of focus? Yeah, what room is there for the other? Okay, and in anti-pluralism, there's not. And Christian nationalism is something that has really kind of gained traction in the mainstream discourse. It's important to learn about it. I'm reading, I'm learning more, I'll talk more about this. But the vice president just gave this speech at the turning point where he said, that America is and always will be like an unabashedly Christian country. I mean, and there was an article in Moment Magazine that Andy shared with us, I passed it on, about Christian nationalism and anti-Semitism, where a Christian nationalist leader said that in a Christian nationalist society, non-Christians, and this was the quote, non-Christians are entitled to peace, justice, and security, but not to full political equality. Because in an anti-pluralist society, there's only one correct way, there's only one right way. If you don't adhere to it, there's no space for you in full. And we saw that in La Siete Partidas, right? You know, Jews have a place here, but like they can't hold office, they can't do, you know, do X, Y, or Z. So this is still, this is real. All right, and then the mobilizing emotion. For Ford, resentment, nostalgia, and moral outrage. For Nation of Islam, anger, dignity, and redemption. And Christian nationalism, fear, grievance, and righteous urgency. Then let's just, I know we're a few minutes over, I just want to finish this up quickly. This backside, let me read through it. All three worldviews translate complex social change into moral narratives of loss and restoration. Each sacralizes identity, distrusts pluralism, and explicitly or implicitly relies on conspiratorial explanations that personalize systemic problems. Here's how each ideology understands the common good. So I asked it this question. Because the common good, are we striving? What does the common good look like? What's the idea of the good in the United States? What a society is for, who it should serve, and what must be protected or restored. And Henry Ford. Ford defined the common good as the preservation of a morality ordered, producer-based America. A morality ordered, producer-based America. He idealized small-scale industry, disciplined labor, Protestant ethics, and social stability. The common good meant limiting forces, finance capitalism, cosmopolitan culture, labor radicalism, that he believed disrupted harmony in community. Prosperity was acceptable only when it reinforced moral order and national cohesion. Pluralism and rapid modernization were viewed as threats to the shared good, rather than expressions of it.
This by the man who made the car, right?
Yeah. Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam defines the common good not as a shared pluralistic project, but as the collective uplift and self-determination of Black people. America is viewed as morally compromised by slavery and systemic racism, and therefore incapable of fully serving Black flourishing through integration alone. The common good is achieved through separation or autonomy, building independent Black institutions, economic self-sufficiency, moral discipline, and communal solidarity. Social arrangements are judged good insofar as they restore dignity, power, and control to Black communities, even if that means rejecting a universal or integrated vision of American civic life. And Christian nationalism defines the common good as alignment between national life and Christian moral authority. Laws, education, and public culture should reflect what is understood as biblical truth. The good society is one where Christianity shapes norms around family, gender, sexuality, and authority. Religious and cultural pluralism are often treated as moral failures, since they allow competing values to undermine what is believed to be God's design for the nation. Shared power. In all three, the common good is particular rather than universal. It is defined by a specific moral community whose flourishing is seen as essential to social health. Inclusion is conditional, and dissent or difference is often framed as a threat to the collective good, rather than a legitimate alternative vision. Okay. So, we have now reached the end of our studies on anti-Semitism. I know it's a grim picture. I wish I had there's a term for the end of a prayer or the end of a speech, which is comforting. It's called the nechemta, like a comforting conclusion. I have none for this. But my hope is that learning this has given you the ability to discern it, to be attuned to it in what you see, and is inspiring interest in resisting this stuff in our society today. So I think our next challenge, and it's something, I had a conversation this morning with a colleague of mine who's working on doing advocacy work in Houston. against Christian nationalism. And to find out, like, what, just more about what he's doing and how, we can get involved as a congregation. But if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, please tell me, because I want to learn more. I want to get involved in, being a resistor to this. But it is really serious out there, and I think it's imperative that we don't ignore it or brush it off. Yeah, Arlene.
Rabbi, I just want to thank, I said to you when we went to lunch that at least we, I think all of us know about anti-Semitism on the surface. But reading the source material of what Paul said and what Martin Luther said, it gives us the opportunity to come back when somebody starts spouting anti-Semitic tropes, that we can point to something, not just, oh, I think blah, 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 but really pointing to where it comes from. For me, that was very, very helpful.
Good.
To not just be talking off the top of my head, but to actually be able to sort of quote back. Like this, it really is real. And this Christian nationalism is to me the scariest thing.
Very scary.
The scariest thing. I mean, they talk about the Sharia law, however you pronounce that, in terms of the Islam societies. I see that far a little bit further away in America than this Christian nationalism is terrifying.
It is right at the heart of American power.
So,
Dorothy.
It seems to me that Black nationalism and Christian nationalism cannot exist together.
No, none of these can exist together. That's the thing.
It's gonna be.
Because anti-pluralist ideologies can't coexist. That's the point.
And the other thing I wanted to ask, I saw Queen of Versailles.
Oh, yes, okay.
Okay, and.
Well, that's maybe a little separate. I want to end the class now, and you can tell me about it, but thank you all for taking the course. I hope you learned a few words. And then for those of you who are taking the Maimonides course in the spring, we start in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
So Happy New Year, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Dory,